Cloud. All right, we are recording. We are good to go. I just want to thank everyone. Thank you guys for your patience trying to figure it all out. Salem, sorry, we're having issues and we are missing you, so we're recording this for you. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So this is financial success for Sales Pro. Sales Pros, really everything you need to know in terms of like the financial principles to set you up for financial success and reaching your goals now and setting yourself up for your future as well. So my background, I'm a certified financial planner or a CFP. In the financial planning world, that's basically the gold standard of the highest designation in helping people with their finances. I did summer sales and for 3 years for Vivint, so I'm very familiar with kind of the financial challenges and navigating a budget on a variable income and everything that comes with kind of being a sales rep, variable income, and a contractor, solopreneur. Been in financial planning for 10 years, and during those 10 years worked for several financial firms, including Vanguard is kind of the biggest name that people know. I've helped hundreds of people, really approaching 1,000 or more with their financial goals and making significant progress towards their financial goals. And I've worked with a wide range of people from 7 figures in student loan debt to 7-figure income earners and everybody in between. This is a little bit about me. This is my family, my wife and daughter, 4-year-old daughter. We're getting big into camping and outdoor stuff. And we just went to the Tetons in Yellowstone last week. So we're pretty had a great time there. So agenda for today, we're going to talk through the challenge for sales pros, some of the keys for financial success, understanding your cash flow, emergency fund and other savings goals, tackling debt, investing in retirement, and tax basics. Now, since we've got such a small group, rather than doing a QA at the end, we're just going to feel free to ask questions as we go.
Number one, we can't see the slideshow.
You know what? That is my bad. I totally forgot to hit the share screen.
There we go.
Yeah. We saw no family. So
all right, there we go.
Oh, nice. The astronaut. There we go. Okay, summer sales. Nice. Tetons, dope. Sounds good. Dope. Nice Halloween.
Perfect. All caught up. Thanks for calling me out on that.
I was like, I think there's supposed to be something going along with this. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, he's talking like we should be seeing something. And
yeah. So you don't mind if we take notes, do you?
Say what? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Cool.
So yeah, those were all the slides that we missed, and then the family, and then the agenda. So as I mentioned, we'll just do questions throughout as we go. So the challenge for sales reps, really I've seen a wide range with sales. I've been in a wide range with sales where you make kind of small to medium money to potentially making really big money. Sometimes I've seen people make way more money than they've ever had in their life and just not quite sure what to do with the funds. There's not really a clear direction. So it's just very easy to spend way more than you just see the money come in. And without a game plan, the only direction for the money to go is to go out and just spending on different things. So I've seen, short-term sales reps not having really anything left or anything to show after making good money. And I've seen long-term sales reps, not having made much progress towards their goals when they had quite a big potential to. Just want to share a little bit about my story and why working with sales reps is something that really resonates with me and also early career professionals. But growing up, we didn't have any money. There were 7 kids. So we were pretty poor. We just didn't have a lot. And I wasn't taught anything in regards to money, budgeting, saving, investing, or anything. Mm-hmm. I got into summer sales in college and made for me, it was life-changing money, more money than I ever thought was possible in a summer. 30 grand, 70 grand, 40 grand summers. Felt like I had all the money in the world. But I had no financial goals, knew nothing about investing. And with that, I just kind of ended up just buying things as I wanted. I didn't go extravagant, but it just the only direction was to spend money. And over the course of my entire college career, spent all of the money and had not only nothing left, but I had 13 grand in debt. After college, after blowing through all that money and landing with 13 grand in debt, I started with a super entry level job, making 40 grand a year. And I was stressed out of my mind with finances, because on a 40 grand a year salary with 13 grand in debt, covering your basic living expenses, progress was like really slow. So I read all the personal finance books that I could find. I was like, I got to figure this money thing out. And I read all of the books that I could find. And through kind of devouring all of those books, I turned my personal finances around. I became passionate about helping other people with their finances, and pursued that, made that my career, and got all the designations to be able to do that. So I've been doing that for 10 years since then. Because of this whole thing, like, I'm really passionate about helping other people turn their finances around. I'm passionate about, I just wish there was somebody there to hold me by the hand and be like, okay, step by step, here's what to do. But there's so much information out there. When you're just kind of Googling it, you're like, okay, this is a lot. Like, what do I do? And so I'm really passionate about taking other people by the hand, step by step. Like, here's exactly how you can do better with your finances to avoid all of the mistakes that I made. So that is my background. Let's dive into the keys to financial success. And first is thinking through your career path and goals. Now, I know with sales, there's kind of two things with sales. Some are either like short term and some are more longer term. This is my career. Some are like, hey, this is for a few years till I kind of figure out school and my career path. So first is thinking through, how long are you wanting to do sales? How many years do you think you're going to be doing it for? Do you have a career in mind that you maybe want to pursue after sales? While you're doing sales, what type of income do you expect? Are you hoping to be making during your sales time? And with that in mind, then start thinking through your short and midterm goals. Like, what are the goals that you have in the next 3 to 5 years, whether it's student loans, a down payment on a home, buying your car, paying for a wedding? And then what are your longer term goals? And really the biggest longer term goal is retirement, and basically having enough saved and invested at some point in the future to be able to stop working and you can live off of your investments. Once you kind of have a thought process of like your game plan with sales and how long you're wanting to do that and how much money you're hoping to make, then it's time to come up with a plan of action for that. And it starts off with your cash flow, mapping out your bills and expenses and deciding how much you want to give yourself for spending versus savings, and making progress towards your goals. From there, you want to establish a financial foundation. So when I think of a financial foundation, I think of a skyscraper. Before they start building up a tower, they dig super deep, 20-foot hole, and put in tons of concrete as a solid foundation, so that when the winds come, storms come, earthquakes come, that skyscraper can handle all that. That's what your financial foundation is for you. So it's going to give you a major buffer when challenges come. To establish a financial foundation, the 3 pieces are paying down credit card debt, if you've got credit card debt, an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of your living expenses and spending, and getting started investing and saving for retirement. After the foundation, then you want to look at your other financial goals: buying a house, buying a car, paying off low interest debt like student loans. And after that, you could look at, contributing even more towards retirement and investing more for retirement. So let's talk through cash flow. And I apologize for my voice. I got sick a week ago and it just wrecked my voice, and it's taking so long to recover.
That's don't even trip. You're good.
See what?
Said, don't even trip, dog. You're good.
So for you guys, I don't know about you, but before I figured out the money thing, I tried budgeting and it was the worst thing in the world. I was like, this is so tedious. And I was like, I think I'd rather like go to the dentist and get a tooth pulled than figure out budgeting. Like it was just, I hated it. Some people either like love it, meticulous budgeters, and other people it's like a 4-letter word and they hate it. My approach to budgeting is I like to keep it super simple. The simpler it is, the easier it is to stick to and implement. So when we go through budgeting and we go through coaching, we're going to help you map out your cash flow and come up with very simple ways to stick to it. High level, the approach is you take your take home pay, what's coming home each paycheck, what's coming home each week. Because you're self-employed, you got to figure out taxes and set aside for taxes. So estimate taxes, then subtract out your fixed bills. That's like your rent, your utilities, your cell phone, your internet. Subtract out any debt payments. And then bulk spending is, this is the big one, is like travel. If you spend a lot in travel throughout the year, but it's basically areas that you may spend in large chunks throughout the year. We break that up and budget for that on a monthly basis. So to recap, income minus taxes, your bills, your debts, and your bulk spending, and everything that is left is what you have to balance between spending on the day-to-day things, groceries, eating out, entertainment, shopping, gas, and making progress towards your goals, whether it's emergency fund, car purchase, debt pay down, retirement, investing. So this is, sorry, what was that?
Could we go back one more slide? Just for notes.
Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. So next is deciding how much, and if you guys want, do you guys want me to send you a copy of this slide deck afterwards?
Sure. Actually, that'd be very helpful.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
That would be great.
So this is a snapshot.
Being able to kind of like look at something helps. It does. The graph helps here and now, but you know,
Yeah.
just
Great. So this is a snapshot from my custom budgeting tool that I made, that when we go through coaching, this is a piece of what we'll be using. But this just kind of shows a recap, high level, a breakdown of the budget. So, you know, got your income, you've got your tax withholding, you've got your bills, you've got your debt minimums, and you've got your bulk spending. And everything that's left, 3,500, is what you have to balance between spending on the day-to-day things and then the grocery and making progress towards your goals. So in this scenario, we just say like, okay, if you aim for 2,000 a month to spend, that gives you $1,500 a month towards your goals. Once you figure out your spending number, the most important part of the budget is coming up with a game plan to help you stick to the spending. Because a budget looks great on paper, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't have a system to help you stick to it throughout the month. And rather than just look at what you did at the end of the month and find out you way overspent. So 3 methods to help you stick to your spending. One is a 2 checking account system, where wherever you bank, you open a second checking account there. And since you're paid weekly, what we would do is we would break down your budget into a weekly spending number, and you just make an automated weekly transfer of your spending. And that's what you use for all of your discretionary spending, groceries, eating out, clothes, shopping. By you doing this method, you just, whenever you go out to eat or you're buying something, you just look at your card balance and see how much you have left to inform your spending decisions before you spend the money. So that's option number 1. That one's probably the most recommended option. Option number 2 is a designated credit card. So with this one, if you've got, you know, a couple of credit cards, you just want one that's not attached to any of your bills, and you set this to pay it off on a either a weekly or a monthly basis. And then you just set it to auto pay. I would say this one's probably easier to do a monthly basis. So whatever your monthly spending number, say it's $1,000, you spend from that card, and you just look at your card balance throughout the month, see how you're tracking compared to your $1,000 benchmark. The third option is kind of a hybrid. It basically takes the two checking account system. And this cube is a hybrid of a budgeting app and a bank. But rather than just having one lump sum of, say your monthly spending is $1,000, rather than having that just be one lump sum of $1,000, it allows you to break it up into different cubes or categories to help you prioritize spending in the different areas. So you'd be like, okay, groceries are 400, eating out's 200, shopping's 200, gas is 300. And then whenever you spend the money, you're able to spend it directly from the category that you want to spend from. And the main advantage of that is it helps you avoid way overspending on like the fun and eating out, and you don't have enough for groceries at the end of the month. Out of all of the options, I would say the lowest barrier to entry to get started is the two checking account system. It works very, very well. The one that is the absolute most helpful is the Cube Money app, but there is a little bit of a learning curve getting started with it. But if you're like, I really want to spend less, I really want to make more progress towards my goals, I think the Cube Money one will work, will help the most. And then the last one is the credit card. If you're feeling good about your finances, you're good with budgeting, you're saving what you want to save, then the credit card option is good when you're kind of already have a really good handle on the budget. Any questions on the budget?
Yeah, so I've actually talked to Caleb about this. Obviously, you've helped him with it. So that Cube Money app, that actually has a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription, isn't that right?
So there's a free version and a premium version. If there's only one user, it's free. And then if you have a spouse and you have a second user on it, then it's a premium subscription.
Do you know just off the top of your head what that is?
I think it's $8 a month.
Okay, nice.
It's like half of a Netflix subscription.
Cool. You budget that into your other fixed monthly.
You have your own cube that just says Cube.
Yeah, you've got a
Name it
cube that just
Cubeception.
Cube.
Sorry, say that again.
You
Oh,
said
yeah.
you've got a cube for Cube. Yes.
Yeah, so this one, if you did, so if it's just you, then it's free. But yeah, if you got a spouse or a partner, and you want two accounts, then it's the $8 a month.
Okay, and maybe this is a little too deep, but then with like a variable, when you do have a variable income, how do you find that level of I guess, percentage for each thing? Obviously, your fixed bills, you got to pay those up front first, right? Just get those out of the way, necessary. But then when it comes to more wanting things, is that just up to your own discretion? Because I feel like that's a big problem I have is I'll just if I want something in the moment, and I've got the money for it, I'll just buy it, even if I've got a budget. So it's
it's a good question. So there's two ways that you can do this. Number one, what I do is we're going to be transferring funds out. So whatever you're not putting into your spending, we don't want to just sit in your checking account. Otherwise, that's just kind of spendable money. So we're going to be transferring funds out, allocating it to specific goals. So if you're saving for an emergency fund, you're saving to buy a car, you're saving to buy a house, we're going to be transferring that money out of your checking account. Because as long as it's in your checking account, it's like spendable money.
Absolutely.
So there's two ways that we can help you do this. Number one, if you're doing the cube method, what I do is you would have a category that's just fun money or big purchase. And within your budget, you build in an amount that you want to be contributing to this on a regular basis. So that then whenever a purchase comes up, you have funds that you've already dedicated and allocated to be like, you know what, I want to, this is my fun money, this is my big purchase money. So we would actually be building that into the budget and not have it be at the discretion of how high or low your sales are.
Okay.
So what we generally do is we create a baseline
Mhm.
and say like, this is your weekly baseline. This is each paycheck. You need to allocate $2,000.
Hmm.
That's going to be going towards bills. That's going to be going towards debt payments. That's going to be going towards what you're allocating for your weekly spending. And then what happens is anything over your baseline becomes your savings number. So
Okay.
if you only made $2,000 that week, you're like, okay, I'm not able to save this week. If you had a $3,000 or a $4,000 week, you're like, sweet, I'm throwing 1,000 to 2,000 towards my goals. But what we want to do is we want to create consistency on the spending so that your variable income, even though you've got a variable income, you have consistency in what you can spend each week and each month. There's no variableness there. And the only variableness is what progress towards your goals looks like.
Have you ever assisted somebody where they have, say, maybe one paycheck made below their baseline, like 1,500, if it's a max of $2,000?
Yep. So what this is where having an emergency fund comes into play. And if you got an emergency fund and your paycheck was $500, then you'd be like, okay, well, I need $2,000. So we're gonna funnel $500 from my emergency fund and then just treat that like a regular paycheck.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, great questions. Okay, so emergency fund and other savings goals. I think emergency funds, most people have kind of heard the term emergency fund, heard like, okay, I've heard of this thing. I feel like, I've heard it's important. Basically, it's the, when the crap hits the fan fund, when something happens and something unexpected, a car repair, a medical expense, a home repair, or when you're on variable income and sales are just really low for a while. What this does is it protects you from getting into high interest credit card debt. And out of everything else, like having an emergency fund in place, having cash, 5, 10, 15, 20 grand set aside, that's just like, if something happens, something comes up, you've got this major cushion there, and it just provides a ton of confidence. When I first was turning my finances around after I graduated and started my first job, and I was stressed out of my mind, I built up my emergency fund, and instantly I felt so much more confident and capable with my finances. So this is a major goal and a major priority. How much to aim for? So 3 to 6 months of living expenses and spending as kind of a benchmark. 3 months if you're, single, you're renting, you got no kids. 6 months if you're, married, have dependents, have a mortgage. You want to give yourself more of a buffer, the more kind of people you kind of have relying on you. Where to keep the emergency fund? The priority is to keep this in cash. Do not invest your emergency fund. Investing is fun and can be sexy and be like, oh, cool, I want my money to earn money. But with the emergency fund, the priority is stability. You want the money there when you need it, and you don't want the value of it fluctuating and at the mercy of the market. Where to keep your emergency fund? Your typical brick and mortar banks that most people have, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they all pay basically 0% in interest. High yield savings accounts, they are fully functional banks. They're fully FDIC insured. They also have no minimum balances, no fees, no transfer fees. They're easy to set up in 5 minutes. This is what we recommend using for your high yield savings accounts. Right now, interest they pay is about 4 to 4.5%, which is not going to make you a millionaire, but that is pretty freaking high interest for cash savings. 3 that I like or recommend the most are Betterment, Wealthfront, and Ally. And again, reasons for these are kind of the highest interest rates out there, no fees, no minimum balances, really easy to get started and setting up. I will say this, when setting up a new bank account, the other sales reps have had an issue, and this isn't online banks only, this is any bank account. If you have not lived at your place for at least a year, oftentimes the accounts can't be opened up online. And because they're not able to verify your identity from public records, and you'll have to mail in an application. That's not 100% of the case. That's just what I have seen. So just kind of setting the expectations there with sales reps who have moved, opening up a new account might take a little bit longer, but it's totally worth it. It's going to make it way easier to be more organized with your finances. It helps you set and forget your money. Like I said, money that chills in your checking account or at the same bank as your checking account is like psychologically spendable money. You want to get it out of there. So it's out of sight, out of mind, and earning high interest. With the other savings goals, this is also where we recommend if you're saving for anything else, a down payment for a house, a wedding, a car purchase, you can have multiple savings accounts that you name for your specific goal to help you be organized with your savings. And the general approach that I have is focusing on one goal at a time rather than trying to save for 5 at a time. I like doing one at a time and making much more measurable progress. Questions on savings goals?
Could you go back one? All right, I just wanted to write down the names of those banks.
One of the things that I do in coaching is I help people get these I'll talk you through the accounts, and if you have issues setting it up, kind of walking through setting it up as well. Okay, so next one is debt. If you got debt, there's 2 major categories of debt. You've got your credit. Sorry, it was.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, cool. 2 major categories of debt. You've got your high interest credit card debt, and then you've got your low interest debt. And you're looking at high interest debt, you're looking at 7+. So really that also includes like personal loans. You can get personal loans for 9, 10, 11%. Credit cards, you're typically looking at 18 to 28%. If you got credit card debt, this is a high priority to pay off. It can be really insidious because people can kind of just look at the minimum payments and like, oh, I can afford the minimum payments. What they don't realize is like 90% of that is all interest, and the balance isn't really going down, and they're just throwing tons of money away. So it's a top priority to pay off if you've got credit card debt. My approach is to pause using all credit cards and use the debt snowball method, where we line up all of your credit cards, lowest balance to highest balance, and to start focusing all of your money on the lowest balance one first, and then just kind of snowballing and tackling them one at a time in order. If you've got low interest debt like student loans, car loans, a mortgage, general approach is the interest rates are low enough that you can really focus on other goals, emergency funds, a down payment, saving for retirement, investing, rather than paying off the debt. Unless it's a high priority for you and you want to just get it knocked out, then we could, prioritize that. But generally, I'm like, if it's low interest debt, just make the minimum payments while we focus on other goals. Another one of the tools that I do if you do have debt is showing kind of the debt snowball. So if you list your debts, you say you've got credit card debt, we're listing at lowest balance to highest balance, the minimum payments. One of the things I like is this makes it very visually easy to see exactly how much time and money you can save by getting laser focused. So in this scenario, if you've got a whole bunch of debt and you're throwing an extra $1,500 towards it, if you were to do minimum payments only, it's going to take you about like 8 years, and you're going to pay almost $8,000 in interest. And by doing this snowball method, you can have it done in 5 months and save $7,000 in interest. So when I do this, most people are very surprised how quickly debt can be paid off, how much interest they can save by doing the snowball method, and being diligent with how much extra they're throwing towards their debt. Any questions on the debt?
Nope.
Okay, let's go through retirement and financial independence here. So this one can go into the weeds. I'm going to try to keep this high level so we don't get lost in the weeds there. Investing could easily, I mean, it is. I've done hour-long presentations just on investing. And even that's not enough. It's just a whole world there. It's kind of like taxes, where it's like, okay, we've got an entire arm of the government dedicated to taxes with investments. So understanding retirement and financial independence. First question is like, what is retirement? What is financial independence? I know for me, when I was like coming out of college and getting my first job, I'd heard the term, retirement, and I was like, what is this? I mean, I knew the concept. It's like, okay, you one day don't work and you live off of it, but it's like, how do I get there? Where do I start? How do I start? How much money do I need? How much money should I be saving? But basically, it's just having enough funds that produce enough interest and returns to cover your living expenses. So the cheaper you live and the cheaper living expenses you have, the less you need to retire. The more lavish you live, the higher expenses you have, the more you're going to need to retire. The average retirement age is about 65 to 67. So as we're planning through, we kind of benchmark, how are you tracking on, aiming for a retirement at 65? And then the question is like, what does financial independence or retirement mean to you? Like when you're, in your 20s, it's so far off that it could be easy to kick the can down the road, be like, I don't know, it's a someday goal. Like I'll focus on it later. But really think through like, why is that important to you? Why do you want this goal? And really it all comes down to options. Once you're financially secure, once you're financially independent, you have all the options that you want. You can decide if you want to work, where you want to work, if you want to start a business, you want to pursue other interests, pursue other hobbies, but basically just provides you freedom. So I boiled it down to 4 steps to getting started investing. Step number 1 is understanding the power of compound investing and how much you want to invest. Step number 2 is what account type to open. And I've broken it down to 4 account types: brokerage, traditional IRA, Roth IRA, SEP IRA. Step 3 is decide what you will invest in. And step 4 is decide where you are going to invest. So let's start through step 1, the power of investing in compound interest. This is where some people think like, how much do I need to retire? And they're like, it's 2 million or 3 million or 4 million. And they're like, their mind is blown. They're like, how in the world will I ever be able to get to that number? And this is where investing really is what transforms and changes people's financial lives. So this graph shows the difference between investing versus saving $10,000 a year for 40 years. And in this, I made an assumption that you average 7% a year return on your investments, which is a very conservative estimate. If you were to save $10,000 a year over 40 years, you would have saved $400,000. So if you put that all into a Chase account in 40 years, you're going to have $400,000. If you were to invest this in the stock market, you're going to notice how over time the account grows significantly. And over 40 years, that $400,000 that you saved grows to $2 million. And suddenly this is where you're in the ballpark of being able to retire. Now the question is, you understand the compounding investing and how that money can grow when it's invested. How much money do you need to retire? So there's something called the 4% rule, which is basically you should be able to comfortably live off of 4% of your investments each year. So $1 million, if you had $1 million, you could plan on that $1 million kicking off about $40,000 a year in interest and returns in retirement. If you had $2 million in retirement, that's going to give you about 80 grand, 3 million, 120, 4 million, $160,000 a year. So the way to decide what you need to retire is you look at what your annual living expenses needs are. How much do I need right now? 40,000, 60, 80, 100,000. You divide that by 4%. That's going to tell you the dollar amount you need to be able to retire. Right now, I think it's less important of like finding out exactly what your number is and more just kind of like a benchmark, because it's going to change over time. Your living expenses are going to be different in your 20s than in your 30s and after you bought a home. So your retirement number is going to be fluid, but it's good to know like where are you at right now, and am I on a good track for my needs right now. So that's step number one, in understanding the compound investing, compound interest. Step number two is what account type do I need to open up? An account is just the holding place of your investments. And the only difference between account types are the tax benefits and rules. And there's really two main categories of account types. There are regular investment accounts and there are retirement accounts. Regular investment accounts, really the goal is to just grow your money for any future goals rather than having it sit in a savings account. You can invest money outside of your emergency fund. If you just want the money to grow longer term, that you want the ability to use at any point. Your regular investment accounts there are no tax benefits and there are no restrictions, and the account type is called a brokerage account. So when you open up a brokerage account, just know there's no restrictions, there's no tax benefits. You can just invest the money to use at any time. Then there are retirement accounts, and the goal of these funds are strictly to help you grow and save your money for when you retire. This is money that you do not touch for anything until you retire. Tax benefits, these have major tax benefits, both in the present now, as well as future tax benefits. These do have restrictions. They have contribution restrictions, how much you can put in. They have income restrictions, how much income you can be earning to be eligible. But the biggest one is you cannot take the money out until age 59 and a half. And if you do, you're going to pay penalties and taxes. The main account types for retirement accounts are for contractors and self-employed. You're going to be looking at traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, and SEP IRAs. If you have an employer or if your spouse is employed and the biggest one through your employer is your 401k. If you are not employed, if you don't have an employer, then you do not have a 401k option. So this can go into the weeds, and it's okay if you don't understand. Like, this is just a lot of information and it takes a while to digest. So it's okay if you're not fully absorbing this. And right after this, you're like, all right, cool. I can go open this account, do this, this, and this. This is kind of laying the foundation here. But I want to show the breakdown, like, say you're saving for retirement. You want to get started saving for retirement. Now you got to decide, okay, I want to save for retirement. I have to decide what account type do I want to open? A traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, or a SEP IRA? The biggest differences between the two, traditional IRAs, you get a tax break now. So you save money in taxes. Whatever you contribute there, the government's like, we're not going to tax you on that money. So you save some money on taxes. And then it invests and it grows until retirement. And when you take the money out of retirement, you pay taxes on everything. both what you contributed, all the earnings and growth. That full amount is going to be taxable money at retirement. So you're kind of kicking the can down the road on the tax front. The Roth IRA, you do not get a tax break today. There is no tax savings. However, everything grows and compounds completely tax-free for the next 30 to 40 years. So whatever your budget has grown to, whether it's grown to 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million, that is totally tax-free money. And then the SEP IRA is exactly like the traditional IRA in the sense that it is, you get the tax break now and you're kicking the can down the road and you'll pay taxes later. The biggest thing is it has a much higher contribution limits on how much you can contribute. The traditional and the Roth IRA, you're limited to $6,500 a year, and the SEP IRA, you can do up to 25% of your net income or up to $66,000. Out of these options, generally speaking, earlier career, I'm generally recommending the Roth IRA. Getting the tax-free growth for the next 30 to 40 years is quite significant. If you are looking to throw a whole bunch towards retirement, say you're in a really good financial position, you're crushing it at sales, you've got all your short-term goals met, and now you're like, I really want to pad retirement, that's where the SEP IRA comes in. But kind of the starter one is the Roth IRA. So we've covered compound investing, how much you need to aim for, 1, 2, 3, 4 million. We've decided, what account type are you going to open? If it's not for retirement, it's going to be a brokerage. If it is for retirement, it's going to be a traditional, a Roth, or a SEP IRA. Once you decide your account, then you got to decide, what am I actually going to invest in? This is what your money, this is what's actually going to be doing the growing. 4 main points, Noah, deciding what to invest in. First is stocks. When you guys think of investing, I'm curious, what kind of comes to your mind when you think of investing?
I guess just, buying a stock in a company or something like that. Small percentage. Modern days, yeah, Wolf of Wall Street for sure. Nowadays, I'd say crypto. That's just kind of been all over media, but
Sure.
honestly, not been super educated on it. So,
Gotcha. Okay. So crypto, that is definitely a piece of this. It is an option to invest. I'll keep this high level. If you want more info on crypto, I definitely do that more into more on our coaching sessions. Generally, with investing, what we are primarily recommending are stocks and bonds, index funds, and ETFs. And the reason, if you do crypto, I generally recommend a very small portion because it is so extremely high risk, highly volatile, unregulated space that you definitely don't want to be like, okay, my retirement plan is Dogecoin, and I'm just kind of banking on this. So if you do crypto, I generally recommend a very small amount. But when you're saving for retirement, and you're like, I'm investing for 40 years. The 100-year proven method is going to be stocks, bonds, index funds, and ETFs. So with investing, stocks is basically buying ownership in a company like Amazon or Tesla. And as the company grows, as the company makes money, the value of your stock grows. These are great for long-term growth of your money, but they are very volatile in the short term. Bonds is basically lending money to companies that they will pay back, and they pay you an interest for lending to them. These are generally more stable, less high growth in the long run, but they provide more cushion and less volatility in the short term. Index funds is rather than going
on that. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Sorry, what was that again?
On that last one, on the bonds, I think you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where you see a return back. Is there like a generally accepted return percentage over a certain amount of time, or is it just kind of like depending on where you want to invest and how much?
For the bonds.
Uh-huh.
So with bonds, and this is where we're going to get into index funds, because rather than going and buying individual bonds, what we recommend is buying groups of bonds. And you can buy
Okay.
bonds through index funds and ETFs. So there's index funds and ETFs where rather than going buying one bond, this fund is invested in like 5,000 or 10,000 bonds. And
Oh,
and like, it also, they're a mix of like, government bonds and state bonds and company bonds. And what they'll do is they're going to have an aggregate. They'll say in aggregate, this is kind of the percentage dividend that this is paying out, 2%,
okay.
3%, 4%. So yeah, rather than going and buying individual bonds, what I recommend and kind of what the financial industry as a whole recommends are index funds and ETFs. So this is where rather than going and buying 100 individual stocks, go buy one stock of Tesla, one stock of Amazon, one stock of Google, you can buy one index fund. And that one index fund is invested in a basket of, 2, 3, 4,000 stocks or 5, 6, 7, 8,000 bonds. So what that does is within one investment, it allows you to be extremely diversified. And investing over the last 100 years has shown like the best performers, the people whose money grows the most are the people who are the most diversified with their investments. And basically the goal is rather than trying to pick which companies you think will be the absolute best performers, an index fund is basically saying, I'm going to buy all of the companies and know that in average, they're going to do very, very well in the long run. And then the last piece is asset allocation. And this term basically means it is the mix or the percentage of stocks or stock ETFs versus bond ETFs that you are invested in. And I like to think about it as a risk and return dial. So if you are invested in 90% stocks and 10% bonds, what that means is if you have $10,000 invested and 9,000 of that is in stock ETFs and 1,000 of that is in bond ETFs, that means you have a 90 stock, 10 bond asset allocation or a 90-10. That is a very aggressive portfolio. It's high in stocks, low in bonds.
Risky.
The more aggressive or the more risky your portfolio, you can expect higher long-term growth in the long run, but more volatility in the short run. Crank that risk dial down and have way more in bonds, say you're 5,000 bonds and 5,000 stocks. Now you're not going to have as high of long-term growth, but there's more stability in the short term. You're not going to see as much volatility. Which one you are in. So here's the 3 principles to investing. Principle number 1 is diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify and buy all the companies and go into 10, 20,000 companies through index funds. Principle number 2 is invest for your time frame and your risk tolerance. So if you're investing for retirement, you're going to want to be mostly in stocks so that you can maximize your growth. If you're investing to buy a home in 5 years, you're probably going to want to be more in bonds because the stock market can fall hard. It can fall fast. It can take a while to recover. So if you're investing for the shorter term, you're going to want to be a lot more conservative. And then the third principle is hands off, set it and forget it. Do not look at your account every day. Don't look at your balances every day. Don't look at the stock market every day. Be like, oh, it's up, it's down. I'm going to try to get out. I'm going to try and get in. Fidelity did a massive research project on all of their investors to see over, I don't remember what the time frame was, 10, 20, 30 years, which investors did the best. And there was one group of investors that were way ahead of the rest by a landslide amount. They're like, whoa, what is it with these investors And why are they outperforming everybody else so much? And when they looked into it, they found out that all of those investors were dead. They
Damn.
were dead, and their accounts had just been sitting there. And the principle is like, these people did not touch their investments because they couldn't, because they were dead. And that principle, like, they did the best rather than the people that were kind of in and out trying to time the market. Oh, the market's way down, I'm going to get down, the market's going to go up. So that's the principle, is you want to set it, forget it. You want to be hands off. You want to figure out, what am I investing in? What index funds am I investing in? What mix of stocks versus bonds do I want to be in? And then set it and forget it. So this is where step number 4 is: decide where to invest. There's 3 ways that you can invest. You can do it yourself. You can research the index funds. You can build your own portfolio. You can do that at places like Vanguard, Schwab, or Robinhood. You can hire a financial advisor to build out your portfolio for you. Most advisors require 50 to 100,000 to invest and charge a very high fee. But the big thing, and this is like the coolest innovation in finances, I think, in modern times, in terms of helping the average person invest very, very well and strategically and be totally hands-off. And that's robo-advisors. Have you guys heard the term robo-advisor?
Nope.
So here's the thing. Most financial advisors, they're not actually picking all of your investments. What they do is, you hop on a call with a financial advisor, they're going to ask you your goals, your time frame, your risk tolerance. Based off of that, they're putting input in a data, and it's going to spit out, here's your asset allocation, here's your funds, here's the percentage into each. And then the software basically implements everything for them. The advisor is not in the account every day and making sure everything is performing. It's all based off of the software and the algorithm. A robo-advisor basically does the exact same thing, but it just takes away the financial advisor. So you open an account, it asks you, what's your time frame? What's your risk tolerance? How comfortable are you with volatility? Based off of that, it's got a professional algorithm that's going to say, this is the portfolio we recommend. This is the mix of stocks. This is the mix of bonds. These are the index funds. And then it takes care of all the mundane day-to-day things that help optimize your performance. I would say that this is the cheapest way to do a hands-off investing and have a very professional, strategic, well-built portfolio to optimize your investments, and will likely perform way better than what the average person is able to invest themselves. There's a lot of robo-advisors out there. All the big box companies now offer one. Vanguard has a robo-advisor. Fidelity, Schwab all have robo-advisors. But the 2 best out there in terms of their cost and the funds that they invest in and the tax strategies they implement are Betterment and Wealthfront. So when I get people started investing, these are generally 2 accounts that I help them get started setting up. So I know that just to recap here, and we'll open it up for questions, because I know that's a ton of information, and it's okay if you can't digest it all today. That's part of what coaching's for. Recap of how to get started investing, decide how much to invest, what type of account to open up. Is it for retirement? Then you're looking at a traditional Roth or a SEP IRA. If it's not for retirement, you're looking at a brokerage account. Decide what to invest in: stocks, bonds, index funds, ETFs. Choose your asset allocation, how aggressive or conservative you want to be. And then decide where to invest. If you're going to be doing it yourself, you're looking at like a Schwab, Robinhood, or Vanguard. If you're doing a robo-advisor, you're looking at Betterment or Wealthfront. Let's pause there. What questions do you guys have on investing?
Okay, so the robo-advisors, you said they're at a fraction of the cost. Say, just for example, you set people up with Betterment and Wealthfront. On average, how much do people pay to have a robo-advisor through those accounts?
Yeah, great question. So robo-advisors are 0.25% of whatever you're managing. So a
Okay.
traditional financial advisor, you're looking at 1% to 1.5%. And a robo advisor, you're looking at 0.25%. So about a quarter or less than a quarter of what a financial advisor would cost.
Cool.
And-
Okay. That's of the number that you're choosing to invest in to is what you're saying.
Yep. So if you've got like $1,000 invested, you're looking at 0.0025. You're looking at that costing $2.50 a year. If you have
Wow.
10,000 invested, that's $25 a year, and 100,000 invested, $250 a year.
So at that point, it's nothing. Their cost is basically nothing.
Yeah,
Essentially.
it's super cheap.
And it just does everything for you. And obviously, with you said leaving it in there, you don't touch it. It basically will find algorithmically, it will find the best situation for investments for you through those accounts, and you just don't touch it.
Yeah, so I'll just show you Wealthfront. Both Betterment and Wealthfront are fantastic. I opened up both accounts just to like try them and see the user interface for each one, and they're both very, very good. But Wealthfront has a really good visual, so you can visually see what they do. So when you open up an account with Wealthfront, it's going to ask you a series of questions. What's your time frame? What's your risk tolerance? And then it's going to assign you a risk score, and it's going to show you, here's our recommended portfolio mix. 85% stocks, 16% bonds. And then it shows you the breakdown: US, international, emerging markets, dividend stocks, bonds. And then it even shows you what, if you wanted to look at, you can look at the specific ETFs of what they're investing in. So the Vanguard Total Stock Market is invested in basically like 4,000 US companies. It's basically buying almost the whole entire US stock market. The foreign stocks, the FTSE is invested in, I think, 4,000 to 6,000 international stocks. Once they build your portfolio, where the magic comes in is the strategies that they do to help optimize your investments and lower your taxes. So they do something called daily tax loss harvesting, rebalancing with your dividends. They do tax sensitive rebalancing, smart withdrawals. So when you withdraw your money, it withdraws it in a way that's more tax efficient. With these strategies, studies show that these strategies help people earn more with their investments and save more money in taxes than the cost of the service itself. So it's kind of one of those things where it more than pays for the cost in terms of performance.
Okay.
Any other questions on investing and retirement accounts and robo advisors?
None come to mind.
Well, I do have one. So both the examples, I'm just curious, both the examples that you threw out there for the whole like stock percentage, your allocation of resources, both of them, you kind of used one, the higher stocks, and then you cut it down 50-50. If I'm just trying to be planned purely for right now, just get on my feet, be solidly financially successful in my 20s, and then maybe a little bit later in my later half of my 20s or beginning of my 30s, I want to start focusing on my retirement. At that point, would you just be like full steam ahead, just bonds?
No, it's a good question. So what you're going to want to do, here's the thing: getting your feet under you, you want to get your emergency fund going. You want to get credit card debt paid off. If you got credit card debt, you want to be saving for your other goals. But you also want to get started with retirement. You don't have to be on track, but because time is your biggest asset with investing, this compound, like in 10 years, you're going to see this grow to, your number does not have to be. Here's the thing: saving for retirement is not a linear number. Nobody saves 10,000 a year for 40 years. It's just easiest for visual purposes. but
Yeah.
maybe you're only able to do like 2, 3, or 4,000 a year for your first, 5 years. And then you're able to bump that up to, 6 to 10,000 a year. And then by the time you're in your 30s, you're like, okay, I'm able to, I've got kind of student loans done. I bought my house, my income's way up. Now you're able to invest like 15 or 20 grand a year in your 30s and 40s.
Okay, so it averages out as your life goes on, as you start to increase. So you're just saying we got to start small to grow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to start small, take advantage because time does the heavy lifting with the investing. So
Mhm.
even if you're only doing a small amount, the other thing is with your Roth IRAs, because you are limited on how much you can contribute, you cannot retroactively say, all right, I'm now throwing 25 grand a year into my
Mhm.
Roth IRA and have that grow tax-free. You cannot
Okay.
make that past years. And so you do want to take advantage of these tax advantaged accounts, even if it's a small amount, 1, 2, 3,000 a year, and take advantage of that compounded tax-free growth for the next 30 to 40 years. Usually you can be doing a small amount towards retirement without impacting some of your other immediate goals. Once you get those more immediate goals, then at that point, we would look at ramping up retirement. The
Okay.
last
So then
thing
I
is-
guess to kind of wrap up that question, would you recommend not going any lower than like 50-50 stock bonds and kind of always be thinking about more having an inclination towards stocks rather than bonds?
So anything you're looking at retirement, you're going to be looking at probably like there are funds out like these are going to default. If you're like, I'm investing for retirement, they're going to default to about 90% stocks, 10% bonds.
Okay.
And they don't start shifting until retirement's like 10 years away.
Okay.
Only at that point do they start shifting down. But you can be
Oh,
aggressive.
um,
Yeah, you're gonna be prioritizing investing aggressively, mostly in stocks for the next 20 years.
okay. Good to
So
know.
say that again.
I said, good to know.
Yeah. So this is the last bit. We're not going to go too much into detail here. So I just wanted to give you a basic understanding of taxes and the tax system. This taxes is also just one of those mystery things. And I see you guys coming in, you're like, oh man, okay, this is the good stuff. Taxes was one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. It's just there's some black curtain. I fill out my taxes and they just tell me, here's what you owe. And I'm like, I have no clue how in the world you came up with that number, but I'll trust you.
Yeah.
So the federal tax system is a progressive tax system. What that means is the lower your income, the lower tax rate you're in. And then as your income goes up, you marginally pay a higher rate only on the dollars in the higher brackets. So there's two main brackets. You've got your single bracket and then you've got your married filing jointly bracket. And you're going to see the tax rates range from 10, 12, 22, 24, 32, all the way to 37%. So let's look at single. Single, your first $11,000 that you make, they're taxing at 10%. When your income's from 11 to 44,000, or so the next 35,000, basically, they're going to tax at 12%. And then from 44 to 95, that next 50,000, they're taxing all the income in that range at 22%. So if you want to know what's called your tax bracket, you look at your taxable income. Say your taxable income's 44,000, or sorry, 80,000. You can know, okay, I am in the 22% tax bracket, and any money I make above 80,000 is going to be taxed at 22%. So the higher your income, the higher percentage those dollars are taxed at. There's three main taxes that you're liable for. You've got your federal taxes that range from 10 to 37%. There are state taxes that range from 0 to 12%, depending on your state. And then there's self-employment taxes. Now, when you are working for an employer, like when you were at Pepsi, They are automatically take care of this for you. It's automatically deducted from your paychecks. Same thing with the federal and the state.
Yeah.
Um, self-employment taxes, this is Social Security and Medicare. Which are just basically federal programs. They tax you 15.3% on your earnings net of your business deductions and expenses. This catches most people off guard, and you want to be able to have funds set aside for this. Now, one of the things that I wanted to bring as a caveat is when you file your taxes, you might be thinking like, oh man, I'm making $80,000 a year. I'm going to owe a crap ton in taxes. There are a bunch of tax deductions and tax credits that can significantly reduce your tax bill. So it does go way more in the weeds than just looking at your $80,000 a year. You'd be like, okay, out of $80,000 a year, there are deductions that can lower how much of that income is taxable. And then in addition to that, there are tax credits, which basically without going into the weeds there, also offsets how much taxes you owe. But at a high level, this is kind of how they come up with what your tax bill is. They'll say, okay, what's your taxable income? You made $80,000. Okay. What are your tax deductions? Well, if you're single, you automatically get a tax deduction. I don't remember what it is this year, but I think it's around $12,000. I'd be like, okay, we're automatically going to deduct $12,000. Okay, what about business expenses? Okay, out of the 80,000, you spent probably 10,000 on business expenses. So you just see like, even though you made $80,000, you may lower it and your actual taxable income is 50,000. And if you have a kid, then you get into having a tax credit, and they'll be like, okay, we know you've got a kid. We're going to, lower your tax bill for having a kid. So there are a lot of things that can lower your tax bill through deductions and credits. But I just wanted to give you a high level overview of this is how they come up with your tax bill at the end of the year.
So quick question, you have to figure that all out before the next year starts?
Good question. So your taxable years from January 1st to December 31st. And then tax filing deadline is April 15th of the following year.
Yes, sir. 2 days before my birthday. I always remember.
You're like, oh, good. It's my birthday. That means taxes are due.
Yeah, it's like, great. I have no money to buy anything because I just spent $1,000 in taxes.
Yeah. So you typically tax filing, people are filing their taxes generally between February and April for the previous year.
Okay, and that's when you figure out all of your deductions, all of your credits, everything like that. You can figure that out during that time.
Yep.
Okay.
And you've got a couple of options. If you are, I asked my buddy who's a CPA, the threshold. If you're earning a smaller amount and his threshold was under 75,000, you're fine to self-serve with TurboTax and H&R Block. Their softwares are awesome. They've got assistants, that people that you can call for help. Or they've got cheap packages to, have somebody help make sure you're filling it all in correctly. If you're making more than that, I definitely say at least 100,000. You just start working with the local CPA, and they're just going to be able to help you optimize more business write-offs and optimize any other tax deductions and credits, and just ensure that you're getting the most bang for your buck and paying the least taxes possible. And then the other thing is just to make sure whatever your estimated taxes are, save that throughout the year. It's not as big of a deal if you have a pretty small tax liability. It's usually a bigger deal if you have a big tax liability. You want to make sure you're budgeting for and saving for that separately throughout the year, so that come tax time, it's not like, oh man, well, you ruined my birthday because you've had the tax bill in a separate savings account that was totally separate from your emergency fund or any other savings goals. Let's kind of do a recap on any questions on taxes.
Um, so I am curious. So I went to H&R Block this last year, and I went kind of in April, just a couple days before it was over. They just basically told me how much I owed, and then I just paid it right up front.
Yeah.
So they didn't really like help me with any of the finding any sort of deductions or anything I had. I don't know if that's because
What were
I
you
didn't
on?
apply to that.
What tax were you on? Were you on a W-2 or
Oh, I guess I was on
Were you on a
W-2. So
1090?
this would only apply as self-employment.
Yeah, so taxes
credit.
are way simple if you're an employee, because there
Mhm.
aren't really any deductions, there aren't really any business write-offs. It's very, filing taxes is
Sorry.
very straightforward as an employee.
For
Uh,
sure.
when you're self-employed, they will likely be like, okay, let's look at what are your business expenses? What did you do in car miles? What did you do in food? You have per diem. What did you put towards internet? I will say your resources are probably going to be pretty slim that close to the deadline. If you want
Mhm.
to help you with, I don't know how busy they get. I know when I worked at Vanguard, vendor does not do taxes, but we send tax forms. And we had so many people calling the day before the tax deadlines, and we're
Of
just swamped.
makes sense.
So I would say recommend doing this at least a couple weeks before the deadline to ensure you can have somebody navigating and helping you with the business write-offs.
Okay. Well, the one thing I guess I was a little curious, I should have asked a little more specifically is because I was on a W-2, they were taking out my taxes throughout the year. So I didn't have to worry about that. But when I went in to do them, I had like a bunch that I owed in federal taxes.
Mhm.
So is that just like W-2s? I guess I'm not going to be on a W-2 for too long, but part of this year I will be on a W-2. And I
Mhm.
don't want to be smacked in the face again with another just like federal tax bill. If I was under the impression that they took out your federal and your state taxes on a W-2.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
So yeah, that is correct. There's a couple of things that can impact how much they withhold. And it depends on how you filled out your W-4, which your W-4 is basically you telling the government and you telling your employer, here's how much I want withheld for taxes. And depending on what elections you chose, it can increase or decrease your withholdings. So since you're no longer employed, there's not really anything, you're no longer a W-2 employee. So there's nothing to change there, but it likely happened where depending on what you put for your elections, for your tax withholding elections, it ended up being a little bit less than what you ended up owing.
Okay. For
So
sure.
this is something I've seen happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but I've seen where people kind of fill out their W-4 correctly and it just ends up not being enough. And then you can go in and manually change it where they change, you can manually change to withhold more from your paychecks. If you are currently employed, I'd be happy to do that with you, but since that's no longer the case, there's not really anything to
True.
address there.
I'm just still salty about it. I've been sitting on that. I've been sitting on that question for a while.
35,
Yeah, I don't know.
or not just $35, but I mean
I know,
$3,500 to the government because I don't even know if it was me filling out my W-4. Some guy's like, yeah, you had to go and click a
Check a box.
check a box, and I'm like, what? And you didn't tell me about this. Anyways,
Yeah, it
that
just
was
seems
on
a
my
little goofy.
So what happened with that one?
So I was making sales, so commission, but it was like I was still on a W-2. Strangely enough, I was still employed by the company. I was still getting all of the benefits and stuff like that from being employed on a W-2. I asked them if I needed to change anything on my taxes moving into a sales position. They said no. It's like, okay, cool. Is there any other paperwork I need to fill out moving into this new position? Like, oh, all the basic stuff from the position. I filled it out. It wasn't like a new W-4 form, if I remember correctly. And they had all my information from the last time I still worked for them. But essentially, by the time tax time came around, the payroll company just stopped taking my taxes out after a while. Like they would take my state tax and they'd take a couple other taxes out, but they stopped taking my federal tax out completely and never told me about it. Never sent me mail, never sent me an email, never let me know about it from my HR guy. My payroll company never contacted me. They just stopped taking my federal amount. And then by the end of the tax year this last year, I got hit in the face with a $3,500
Dude,
tax
that's brutal,
debt.
man.
So now I'm on a payment plan for stuff I didn't have control over because it's a W-2. The whole reason it defeats the purpose of a W-2, but I don't even know what happened because when I talked to my tax expert, they were like, yeah, there's only two things this could be. Somehow this could be something on the government end where they screwed it up. I can't remember exactly what they said. It could have been that the government screwed up, but then they're like, or this is on your payroll company and your company just absolutely, dropping the ball. And I assume it's the latter. So
Yeah, that would be my assumption too. And that would be, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what would take to file a grievance, but that definitely sounds like that's on the company and on the HR.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hey, listen, what the heck? You just stopped withholding for taxes. I don't know what they can do to make it right. I'm not like, hey, I want you to pay any penalties or any excess interest that I end up paying. But I mean, that's probably a big uphill battle to try to fight. But sorry that happened. That super sucks.
It's unfortunate. Like I said, I'm on a payment plan, and it works out all right. It's like a pretty simple one, just 2 years, and I'm hoping soon enough I'll be making enough money to pay it off before this next tax season, so I don't just have it pile on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll make enough sales. I'm not super worried about it right now, but
Yeah. Well, I will say it's one thing to make the tax mistake. It's another thing when it's somebody else's tax mistake that's impacting you. Last year, I made a first tax mistake. I self-filed through TurboTax, and it's worked great for me for 10 years, 15 years. And I went and checked the status in May, and it's like, file your taxes. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I filed my taxes. And I looked in and I got through the whole process, and I had forgotten that it had stopped because it asked, I had to submit my spouse's photo ID since I'm filing. And I had forgotten to do that. And because I didn't do that, it didn't file my taxes. So I got hit with a $1,200 fine for failing to file taxes by the deadline. And I was like, that's so dumb. I filed everything. I just forgot to put in the picture. So
they are ruthless, man. That's why when you're like, okay, taxes, I get like this close to the camera. I'm like, okay, how does it work?
Yeah, I'm actually working on making a course for summer sales reps and just door-to-door sales reps, and gonna have a section on taxes, just because I'm like, the average person needs to know taxes, but contractors and self-employed people really need to know taxes.
Yeah. Anyways, long spiel, but it was lame, and this helps me understand it a lot better. So
yeah, cool. So here's kind of the main takeaways. I know we've gone through a ton of information, but we have to boil it down to the most important themes. Number one, budgeting is going to be the most important aspect of this. This is what's going to drive progress towards your goals. Break it down to your weekly spend and save number, and use a method to help you stick to your spending. Financial goals, you're going to want to focus on your foundation first: emergency fund, credit card debt, getting started with retirement, and use a high yield savings account for your savings goals. Investing, get started with retirement now. Use something like a robo-advisor when you've got good financial stability and you're ready for money to grow. Investing in brokerage and retirement accounts to start setting yourself up. Any last questions for me?
Yes. So you mentioned coaching sessions. How does that work?
Cool. Well, that's actually what I will talk through next. So here's kind of what the coaching is. My goal is to help you guys take information and turn it into action. These sessions can be super helpful, but it's also a fire hose of information, and it's really hard to digest it. Be like, okay, what exactly does that mean for me? Where am I now? What steps do I take? How do I get started with all this? With coaching, I like to paint a picture so that people know what to expect. CFPs are the highest standard in financial planning, and they are very expensive to work with. They primarily focus on working with the already wealthy. Getting a financial plan, a basic financial plan from a CFP costs $1,500 at a minimum, up to about $7,500 for a more complex one, or you need to have $100,000 to invest. My approach, I am not passionate about helping the wealthy get wealthier. I'm really passionate about helping kind of people just starting out, trying to get their foundation under them and get on a really good trajectory, because I know what it's like to be there. So I'm really passionate about making coaching affordable for early career and, the not as much, people making smaller incomes. So I've got two packages. There's a financial action plan package for $199. That's for a single session, a 1 hour session with me. I have a suite of customizable tools that you get: budgeting, savings, debt, retirement, action plans, goals organizers. And this is basically for people who just need a single session to come up with a game plan and they're set to go. Then I have the Transform Your Finances package for $450. This is 3 1 hour sessions over the course of 3 months. You get the same suite of tools. This one, we just do a much, much deeper dive into everything. There's a lot more hand holding, a lot more follow through, and helping with the implementation of everything. And then on an ongoing basis, I do check-in sessions for accountability and implementation for $75. Now, here's the cool thing. I've worked with Jeremy on this, and he really wants to invest in his sales reps and help you guys not only make great money, but help you manage that money well. So there's two things. I'm bringing the price down from $450 down to $300 for the 3 session package. And on top of that, Jeremy and Britton are going to pay half of that for you. So they will pay $150, and that brings the price down to you guys up to down to $150. I will say this: he offered to pay for the whole thing. However, I said, here's my experience. People tend to value what they pay for, and people who get things for free, they don't take it as seriously. I was like, they need to have some skin in the game, and they will take much more action on it. So just know that he was willing to do all of it. I was like, I think your reps will see far greater results if they've got a little bit of skin in the game. And we tried to bring it down to a price where it is very reasonable and does not have a big impact on you guys. So we bring it down to $150. Jeremy had said that there's company incentives for people who participate in this. And my goal is to help people sign up quickly. So we're doing this for people who sign up for your first session by the end of Thursday to get the ball rolling. People who don't sign up, I just find that life happens, things get busy, and it just falls off the radar. The 3 session coaching package is over the course of 3 consecutive months. I'm going to send you both a link in an email, and we'll have to work something up for shoot, I forgot the name. Who is supposed to be Salem. Hopefully he can get this email. We'll figure out something. The link to sign up will be in the email, and you're going to want to use the code EnergyPro300 to get the price down from $450 down to that $150.
Mind if we write that down fast?
Yeah, and I'll send you that email. That will be written in the email.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Once you sign up for the coaching session, I will send you the workbook. The workbook has tabs to fill out, like your profile, your budget, your account balances. All that information will be spelled out in the email.
All right.
And then when I email you, if you have any questions, you'll have my email. You can go ahead and respond with any questions. Any questions for me about coaching?
How
I
long?
think,
Oh, sorry.
I-
How long are the sessions? You said an hour?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was the only question I had.
and then obviously, I'm pretty sure you were saying that your original pricing, the one that's being covered in all of this that we're talking about with Jeremy and the whole incentive thing, that's the one where you kind of do the more hand holding, the working with us, the checkups and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay, accountability. Cool. All right. Yeah. Then I mean, dope. I'm down for it.
Yeah. I will say I've already taken the other sales reps through this and seen tremendous results in just 3 months time. So I know that you guys signing up for this, you're gonna see like 3 months from now, you're gonna be like, man, you're gonna be in such a better place. And I find that the results are kind of like gradual. You're not going to be a millionaire by month 3. You're not going to be, totally debt free, but you're going to have the foundation blocks in place so that you're going to be able to start seeing. My goal is to kind of take people from a kind of a flat financial trajectory to a like, okay, we're going to be significantly ramped up so that as your income goes up, you get more sales, you're going to be making much more progress towards your goals than you were prior.
Absolutely. I know Caleb spoke very highly of you, so that's a good sign, I guess. I know that he's doing really well financially. I mean, he was even giving me some tips before I had even heard your name or heard anything that was going on.
Yeah.
And he was, I don't know, he's in a good spot. He's feeling good. And I know Caleb, and boy, he sucked at finances for a long time. So, me and his brother, our upbringing, we just don't have the background for it. So yeah, no, I definitely.
Money bags.
Yeah, well,
I'm just joking.
you know how to hold on to money. I don't know how, but we don't. Caleb and I are
I'm just
very
joking.
impulsive buyers and just impulsive money spenders. So, I mean, if you could help him, I'm sure you could definitely help me. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. Well, I will say this, Caleb is the freaking man. Love Caleb. All the sales guys I've talked to are freaking awesome. But yeah, Caleb is super cool. And
Yeah.
well, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and email you guys the sign up link. The once you go ahead and sign up, and the sign up link will also have the code. And then once you schedule your first appointment, I think my first appointments are booking out like a week away. Once you schedule that first appointment, I'm going to email you the workbook with the instructions of here's what you need to do to prepare for our coaching session.
Okay. And one thing, you said the 27th is the last day for sign up, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, with everything that is going on with my finances right now, this is something that I'd probably either have to wait for Friday to get this next paycheck going in. I just barely went on vacation, California. So my finances are not where they should be, which is the reason I need this.
Okay.
But
I can
pointing,
go ahead and extend this. I can extend this to Friday.
cool. I can get you on Friday, and that'll be golden.
Okay, cool. If you have any issues, if any issues at all setting up, or if you're like, listen, I really want to do this, I can't pay for a couple weeks or something, email me and we can work something out. I've had people where it's like, you know what, we'll schedule my session in 2 weeks and I'll pay at that time. So if you're like, I can't pay before the coaching and I gotta wait till the coaching starts, we can work something out. But I'll extend this discount code through Friday. And then
Okay.
if you have any issues or any other way accommodations that you need, reach out.
All right.
Thank
I've
you.
got it in my notes or on my calendar rather. So
Okay.
that should be good. Let's see. We'll do 8 a.m. Give me a nice alert.
And I'll
All
also
right.
have another follow-up email on Friday as well. Say, hey, this is the day to sign up.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
Perfect. Well,
thank
Tian,
you, Jimmy.
Vivian, it's been super awesome having you on here. You guys have been great. You've had amazing questions. I appreciate your patience with the tech issues at the beginning, and then all of your questions throughout this. And I really look forward to working with you. I'm excited to be able to help you start making a lot of progress towards your goals and start feeling confident in your finances.
Agreed.
Sure.
All righty. Thank you, Jimmy. We appreciate it. You have a good night.
Yep.
You
Thank you for
too.
the information.
Okay, we'll catch you
Okay,
later.
guys. Take care.